Welcome back. The next types of property documents I'll be talking to you about is governor's consent. Governor's consent. What is governor's consent? Governor's consent is a vital title document in real estate transaction in Nigeria. Everybody needs to know that. In fact, I'm sure some people are not so used to the word governor's consent, and with this explanation you'll be able to know exactly what governor's consent stands for. Now follow me closely. It's a legal document issued by the governor of a state in Nigeria granting approval, please note the word approval, for the transfer of ownership of a property from the seller to the buyer. Note those words I underlined. Now the governor granting approval for the property that is being sold by the seller to the buyer. It is very, very simple. And I need to also make mention that where governor's consent is valid is where you have certificate of occupancy, that is CFO. Now, in the last class we talked about what CFO is and all of that. Now, I need to also make you know that CFO can only be issued once. You cannot get CFO more than once on a particular property. It's not like other documents, the deed and all of that. But for CFO, you can only get it once. And once you have a CFO on a property as a seller, like someone, if I have a CFO on my property and I want to sell to somebody, now the next person I'm selling to cannot obtain CFO on it. What the person needs to obtain is called governor's consent. It's very simple. Property madam owns the property, and she's still going to sell it to Mr. Femi. Mr. Femi already paid property madam for the property. Now, for property madam to effectively transfer ownership of that property to Mr. Femi, who is buying from her, she needs Mr. Femi needs to obtain governor's consent. And I need to make you know that for every property where you see governor's consent, such property already have certificate of occupancy. And for every property that has certificate of occupancy, you cannot issue or receive another certificate of occupancy, meaning a certificate of occupancy, CFO as many always call it, can only be issued once on a property. Please note my word. You can only receive certificate of occupancy once on a property, which means if my property, which I'm selling to Mr. Femi, already has a CFO, now for me to say the property has been effectively transferred to him, of course I have to pack all the documents and everything I have as regards the property to him and give everything to him to show that I've transferred. But you see, if the property has CFO, what Mr. Femi needs to go ahead and obtain to make the ownership, to authenticate the ownership of that property, all he needs to do is to obtain what I call governor's consent. Although it's a lengthy process, but it is worth it to obtain governor's consent. Now the point I also made is, it says the governor's consent authenticates the transfer of ownership of a property from the seller to the buyer, while CFO confirms the ownership. That is just the summary. The document that authenticates the transfer of ownership from the seller to a buyer, especially when the property has CFO, is what we call governor's consent. I want to believe this is clear enough. If you have more questions, you can you can send them to the comment section. I'll be glad to answer you. Then send this video to someone who this video might be help to. Thank you for watching. God bless you.